Greetings, Oracle Database fans. This is Justin, and in this Oracle Database YouTube video tutorial, I'm going to give you an introduction to SQL Plus variables. Okay. Now, to learn more about SQL Plus variables, please check out my other SQL Plus videos, which give you more detailed information of working in SQL Plus as it pertains to an Oracle database. And I do have videos to get more in depth into variables and working with them and applying them to other things. But this video is just a basic introduction to SQL Plus variables. Now, an SQL Plus has variables just like other components in computers do, such as operating systems and programming languages. But let's define what a variable is before we get started here. If you remember from your junior high algebra mathematics course, variables were introduced. Okay, and computer science uses variables as well. Now, variables are used a lot in programming languages, okay? And a variable, what it is it is an object which holds, okay, a value. And the computer science definition of it that I read in a computer programming book, many computer programming books actually, is that it is the name. A variable is a name in memory, okay, somewhere stored in memory, which holds a value of something. Okay, so for instance, in DOS, this is our DOS operating system environment here. If we in this session we type in set, like we always do in all of our videos, or capital Oracle _SID finance. Okay, the set command is a command in DOS that says that I want to set a variable. The variable name is going to be called Oracle _SID. The value of this variable is going to be finance. Okay. Now, if we just type in echo Oracle _SID, okay, the operating system is going to spit this string back to us, Oracle _SID. It's just a string. But if we enclose that string with percent signs like this, okay, that tells the operating system within these percent signs, that tells the echo command that within these percent signs is a variable. So look in memory for a variable that matches this name and give me the value of that variable. Okay, there it is, finance. And we know that the SQL Plus command, when it's invoked, checks the Oracle _SID variable in memory, and whatever the value of that variable is, that's what SQL Plus uses to know what database to connect to. Okay, so if you just type in echo and in a string, that string, as echo suggests, gets echoed back to you. And if we do percent signs around the string name, then we actually get the value of that variable Oracle _SID. Okay, the same thing in mathematics, x equals 2, x equals y, whatever, okay? And programming languages also work the same. Okay, so with our Oracle SID set to finance, we are ready to log in SQL Plus and take a look. Okay, now SQL Plus looked at the Oracle SID value saw it was finance, so now it connected to the right database. Now we type in show user to ensure we're connected as the right user, sysdba sys, which we are. And if we type in select name from the $ database, we'll see that we're connected to the right database, finance, because this variable was set properly to finance. Now, prior to recording this video, I created a table in the sys schema called names. And if we do a describe on names, and remember DESC is short for describe, DESCRIBE, we get the physical structure of the table. Okay, physical if you will. And the physical structure has one column in it. The column name is fname, short for first name, and the data type, the type of data that can go into this is varchar2, variable character 2, 20 characters. Now if we do a select asterisk from names, what I'm asking Oracle to return to me is all the values of all the columns in this table, names. And we know we only have one column, fname. So if there's any rows in this table, okay, which is this column, all right, this will return it. And I did. I inserted 2 rows into the names table, okay, which get inserted into the fname column. Okay, John and Minka. Okay, so that's our data. This table is populated with data. So let's say I want to do a more selective query. Okay, what I can do is the following. I can type in select fname from names, where fname is equal to Minka. Select my fiance. Okay, so select fname from names, where fname is equal to Minka. So select what other rows are in the column fname when the column fname is equal to Minka, and we get Minka back. Makes sense, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to set a variable and show you how variables work. Now, we'll come back to this example in a second. If you type in the define command in sqlplus like so, you're going to get a list of default variables that sqlplus sets by default, okay, by installation default. Okay, so these are default variables which are set, all right, and also user variables that you set per sqlplus session. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a variable called var. I'm going to say define var equals, and I'm going to say names. Fname, sorry. Okay, so to set a variable, you type in define, to look at all the variables that are currently set in your sqlplus session, you just type in define without any clauses. To set a variable in sqlplus, you type in define, the name of your variable equals the value of it. So you're setting this value to this name. So if we type in define again, we will see, there it is, define var equals fname. So we'll see the sqlplus default set variables and the variable that we set. Now, to just see the define var variable, we type in define var. And now we don't get all the variables that are set, we just get the variable var, which stands for fname. Okay, we even get the character type next to it because we're working with a database. Now, remember, the variables only exist during your sqlplus session. So if we were to quit out sqlplus, okay, which means we ended our session, and we were to reconnect to the Oracle database by establishing another session through sqlplus, we were to type in define var, we will see that it's undefined. Symbol var is undefined because it's only var. Our user-defined variables like var that we set up here are only exist while we're connected in our sqlplus session. Once we exit and come back in, they're gone. But if we type in define, we will see that our Oracle default variables persist. Okay, and check out, I have another video where I talk about how to make variables persist across sqlplus sessions. So check that out to see how that works. So we're going to go ahead and redefine our variable var to fname, find var, and we'll see that it's set. Now, to unset a variable, you just type in the exact opposite, undefined var, and you don't put an equal value. Okay. Now, when you type in define var, you will see that it's not defined. So we did a define var equals fname, define var, and it shows us that the var variable now has a value that we set up here, fname. Then when we did an undefined var, and then we check the value of var, we see that it's undefined, it's empty, null, whatever you want to call it. There's nothing in it. Okay, but of course the default variables are still there. So let's go ahead and set our var value again. Define var equals fname, like so, and we type in define var, and we see that var is set to fname. Now, you can use variables in a number of different ways, okay? And you can use them in select statements, which is pretty cool. So again, if I have my names table, so if I type in select fname from names, where fname is equal to Minka, okay, I'm asking it to return the row in the fname column that has a value of Minka, okay? Now, I can substitute anything in this command that's not part of the command. So basically any value here, okay, that's not part of the command, I can substitute. So I can say select, and when I use an ampersand, that's basically saying a variable is going to follow, okay? So select var from names where var is equal to Minka. Okay, So basically what I'm saying here is I'm saying select ampersand var from names where ampersand var equals Minka. And what that says is select the value of var, which is fname, from names where the value of var fname equals Minka. So this basically reads select fname from names where fname equals Minka. Just like I said, I should get the same value I get up here. Okay? And I do. And the cool part about substituting variables, which Oracle did, is it shows you what the old one was. Then that's what we typed in. Select ampersand var from names where ampersand var equals Minka, and it shows you the new one, which is what it was replaced with after it was interpreted or substituted. Select fname from names where fname equals Minka, and we get Minka. So that right there is a cool use for variables. Okay, you can use them in a select statement. Now I'm going to quit out sqlplus, and we all recall what happens when we quit out of sqlplus. Our variables that we set go away. Okay, they're not defined anymore. So now let's go ahead and let's issue this command again using the var variables, but the var variable is currently not set, and let's see how the Oracle database behaves. Okay, so Oracle is saying now you're issuing a select statement against the Oracle engine here, and we're saying select ampersand var. Oracle says, Oracle comes across ampersand, and Oracle says to itself, there's going to be a variable name that follows the ampersand var. So I need to replace ampersand var to whatever the value the value of the variable var is. Okay, and he wants to do it twice, here and here. But then Oracle comes across the first value and variable and says, wait a minute, var has no value. We see that up here with defined var. Symbol var is undefined. Oracle sees that too. So it says, I need a value for it. So we're going to go ahead and type in fname. Now, you'll notice that Oracle will prompt us for the value again. Why? Because Oracle came across a non-defined variable again, var. So it came across a non-defined variable once, and then it came across it again, a non-defined, undefined. So Oracle came across an undefined variable once, and then it came across an undefined variable again within the same select statement. So that being the case, okay, it's going to ask us for its value twice. And I actually did that wrong. I shouldn't have put a semicolon. I'm so used to working with sqlplus. I think you need to do semicolon for everything. I'm delirious. And now we see that it has succeeded because the select statement has succeeded because we gave it a value for fname. Okay, we gave the first occurrence of the undefined variable var a value, and we gave the second occurrence of the undefined variable var a value. Fname for him, fname for him. And it replaced it with fname here and fname here, and we got Minka as our result. Now, what if you have a very complex SQL select statement, and it goes on for lines and lines? I've seen them go on for hundreds of lines, okay? It'd be pretty tiresome, okay, that if you have an undefined variable or multiple undefined variables to sit there and type them in, because sqlplus is going to prompt you for every one of them if they're not set, if the variable is not set, okay? And what if var is referenced, this var variable that's not set is referenced like 1,000 times or even 25 or 50 times? That doesn't do much for automation, and that's going to kill you to sit there when you execute that SQL prompt in the foreground to sit there at your keyboard and fill in that value over and over every time sqlplus prompts for it. So to get around that, what you can do is you can put two ampersands here in front of the first occurrence of var. So we know that the var variable is not defined. So we have two ampersands here, okay, and one ampersand here. And basically what the two ampersands here is telling Oracle is it's saying, not only is this a variable, but not only is this a variable and I want you to look up the value, but every other occurrence or reference, every other reference of this variable var, if it's not defined, I want you to take the first prompt, the first the first value that the user enters when we prompt them for it, I want you to use it for the rest of the SQL statements. I want you to use that value that the user enters when we prompt them for it for every occurrence of this variable through the rest of the SQL statement. Okay, so it's going to say enter value for var because var is not defined, and we're going to type in fname. Like so. Bam. You see what happened there? When we did it up here, remember the var variable is not defined. So when we referenced a variable that wasn't defined here, and we referenced another variable in the same SQL statement, the same variable actually, that wasn't defined, okay, sqlplus, when it goes to execute that select statement, is going to prompt us for a value of that undefined variable twice because it was referenced, that undefined variable was referenced twice. But if we put a double ampersand during the first occurrence of that during that first reference of that undefined variable, every other subsequent reference to that undefined variable will get the value of the first prompt that we got, which is this one. Okay. All right, that's how SQL Plus variables work. That's just a basic introduction to it. And again, to get more into it, check out my other SQL Plus videos. Thank you.